Hi, this is Kevin Bonham, and this is video 4 in Inkscape for Scientists. And in this video, after I took a little digression to talk about the workspace, we're going to talk about how to make some more complex shapes. But before we get into that, I want to just talk a little bit about how vector imaging software like Inkscape thinks about shapes, or sort of the model underlying shape construction. So let's get into it. All right, so here I've drawn a few different shapes. Some of them have fill, some of them only have stroke, and I wanted to show just a couple of different things about what a shape is in vector imaging. So to do this, we're going to use the node tool here. So keyboard shortcut by default is N. This is similar to the direct selection tool in Illustrator. And when you have this and you click on a shape like a line, or this shape like here, what you'll see is a bunch of different what are called nodes, and those nodes are connected by edges. So if you use the node selection tool here, you can move individual nodes around like this, and this, of course, changes the connections between them. Some nodes, what you'll see, have these little handles on them, and what those do is they control the way that the node is connected. So here, these are all connected by points. And if we double click that, or actually, I guess it doesn't do double click here, but up here in the tool control bar, you'll see a bunch of different options about nodes. One of which is here, make node symmetric, which generates these little handles. And if we tweak these handles, you can see that the way that this point is connected here and the way that this point is connected here have these curves. These are Bezier curves. And the connection of a point to another depends on the curve features of this node and this node. So right now, this node is still it doesn't have those handles on it. But to see how that works, let me take a look at here. So this again is a symmetric node here. And you can see that this curve, when I tweak these handles, it sort of moves around that curve. If I move this handle, it also changes the curve near this node and the ones around it. But all of the other nodes are staying the same. So this takes a little bit, it's not super intuitive, at least to me, how these things are related. But it takes a little bit of practice. And once you get into it, you can start to see. So another thing to note is that we can also convert a node to a corner. So up here, we converted a node to have these handles on it. We can also turn it into a corner like that. And now you can see this handle has gone away. So in this shape here, we can do the same thing. If I have this node selected, I turn it into a corner, clicking it once makes it so that I can adjust these handles independently. And then if I click it again, it removes the handles entirely. So this is now just a point. Let me go back to regular selection. You can see this is now just a sharp point there. Over here, you can see that the shape of the node itself changes. So this, again, is a symmetrical one. So when I move one handle, it changes the other one as well. But here, this sort of diamond instead only has a handle on one side. And again, if I go like this, it will go back to being a regular point, or I can take out a handle here and adjust it separately. Okay, you can see I make little loops, etc. So again, not super intuitive just off the bat, but just know that each individual node can be selected and manipulated separately. There's a bunch of other options here you can see, like we can make this an auto smooth corner here, and as soon as I manipulate it, it changes. Let's see, the shape is a circle there. You can also make it smooth, but still movable. So we have this sort of pointed one here. If I make it smooth, it's gonna sort of round it out a little bit. So lots of other options to play with. You can delete nodes. So if I take this one, I can remove it. Oh, that's adding. Sorry, delete selected nodes here. You can also use the delete key. You can select multiple nodes and move them at the same time, etc. You can even align nodes. So if I take these nodes and I want them all to be in a straight line, you can use the Align and Distribute panel. You can see here you have options to line them all up along the same vertical or horizontal edge, or space them equivalently, etc. So lots of options to play with here. One other thing I wanted to show you is that obviously you've seen that you can fill a shape with color. I wanted to mention that shapes that are not closed can also be filled with color. You can see here there's no line connecting these two nodes on the edge. If I want to make that a closed shape, I can do so by selecting both nodes and then saying here, join selected nodes. So that converts them into the same one. Sorry, here we go. Join selected nodes with a new segment. Oops, I got to select them. Join with a new segment. And if I want to do the opposite here, I can separate them like that. And we remove the join between them. Interestingly, I can even have a shape where I don't have lines between any of them. Now these are still the same object. They're in a group, but each of these lines is independent now. And I think I can ungroup them. Is that true, or do they remain the same? Let's take a look in the layers panel here. Yeah, so this is actually still a single path, even though these nodes are separated. One thing, feature that I just showed sort of inadvertently, is if you have straight lines and you have the node selection tool, in addition to being able to select individual nodes and move them, you can actually select the path between them. And you'll see here, if I select that, both of the nodes that make this edge get selected. And now I can tweak the edge itself, and that adjusts the handles of those nodes sort of appropriately. You can't do everything that way, but if you want to have a little bit of extra control, you can select the edge and sort of manipulate two nodes together at the same time, which is kind of neat. All right, so the last thing I want to say about nodes and edges is that the way that you make the shape actually determines how those nodes behave, because in vector images, you can define things not just by nodes and points, but also there are sort of primitive shapes. So for example, if you use the circle tool to create a circle like I did here, we grab the node selection tool, what you'll see is that I don't have sort of nodes all around that are making these edges, and I don't even have sort of, you might imagine, 4 points, each of which are connected. Instead, I have 2 points that control the sort of width and height of the ellipse, and I have a thing here that allows you to sort of make a pie chart kind of thing, slice of that circle. But I don't have other nodes that I can manipulate the way that I did with these shapes over here, where I can sort of tweak this edge here, because this is an ellipse object. It's defined sort of in the underlying file structure, rather than by points in the connections between them. It's defined as an ellipse. So we can convert this to a normal path in ways I can talk about in another video. But so I want to mention that certain shapes have this property. So a rectangle here is another example of that. So here for a rectangle, I have nodes that I can adjust with an individual on the individual corners. And of course, I could rotate this as well if I wanted. And then I have the roundedness of the edge of that square. But I don't have individual nodes, as opposed to this shape, which I made with a pen tool. So I made this as a closed path. And here now, I can adjust those individual corners. Let me undo that. I can grab an edge here to make it curved, like I was with these shapes. So this square, or this rectangle rather, as created, is more similar to this path, with this weird path over here, because I have this nodes and connections between the nodes, as opposed to this rectangle object. Now, one more thing here, this is a rectangle as well, but this was created not with the rectangle tool, but instead with the shape tool. And here you can see I only have a single node, and all that does is it affects the rotation. If I double click this object, you can see up here I have the shape selection object, so I can convert it to a star, I can change the number of corners on the shape, how rounded it is, etc. But the individual node that I have access to with the node selection tool is only rotation and size, essentially. So rectangle, I have corners and roundedness. With a path, I have all of the normal individual node selection options. And with a shape, I just have the option to change the corners. If I'm grabbing the corner here, I'm just changing size and rotation. If you want to increase the roundedness, you can do that, etc. So you can see if I sort of go over the edge of roundedness, it converts it to more like a star-like thing. We can do all kinds of fun stuff here that you can play with. Okay, so that is telling us about the sort of components of an individual shape. We have nodes, we have edges, and in the case of some interesting shapes, like rectangles and ellipses, we have sort of other properties that we can mess with. But now I want to show you how you can sort of make arbitrary shapes that might go into figures. And the most straightforward way is with the pen tool, which is here. So we can draw these Bezier lines that I mentioned before. So if I just click, move, let go of the mouse, move, click again, I'm making, here you can see straight lines. And if I either switch to a selection tool or I hit enter, that line gets created. And you can see this is an open shape. Oops. It's the wrong tool. Oh, I'm using my keyboard shortcuts. I'm trying to do A instead of N for node selection tool. And here you can see I can affect these individual lines. As we said, we can join points together, etc. When I have this point tool, I can also, instead of just clicking, if I click and drag, it will turn that node into a curve. And so now you can see that as I go, if I click and hold, I can sort of adjust that curve as I go. And again, this is one of those things that takes a bit of practice to get right. It's not super intuitive. But as I'm drawing, if I come back to my original point, you can see here the node changes color. If I click that now, it will complete the object, finish it off as a closed shape. So I can make really interesting shapes sort of just with this node, with the pen tool. There's a bunch of options for how the points get connected that you can play with if you like. If you want to make a sort of more interesting shape here, I'm just clicking points, but it's working in a spiral, etc. So you can play around with that. The end result, though, is still an object with individual nodes that work just like those other objects that we talked about. So just be aware that there are sort of other ways that you can make your initial path. The last one that I want to show is the pencil tool. So here, this is a bit hard, I find, with a mouse. But this can be nice if you sort of have an idea of the shape. You don't want to play around with the clicking and dragging and sort of manually adjusting those nodes with the pen tool. You can try to sort of draw a shape here as best you can. And then it will fill in that shape. But you can see it's pretty ragged when I do this with a mouse, and there's a lot of individual nodes. We can play with, there's options here to sort of try to smooth out. I think if we select the whole, if we select a bunch of points, for example, and we try to smooth this, I think that will work. No. There is an option here that I'm forgetting where exactly it is, but that you can sort of have it try to auto remove individual nodes. I'm forgetting right at the moment where that is. It's probably under path. Simplify. Yeah. So here you can see now I just did that, and now we've got a lot fewer points. Path, simplify. It sort of keeps reducing the number of nodes here more and more to try to smooth it out a little bit. So that's one thing you can do if you want to sort of draw a vague shape, simplify it a little bit, and then do your manual edits here to undo the corners. Again, play with the stuff in the tool bar up here. It can sort of help to adjust nodes when you have like weird corners like this. You can try to sort of smooth those out. Again, not necessarily intuitive just from watching. You really got to play with and practice with these things. But now you know sort of what the components of an individual shape are and how to get started with some more complicated shapes. In the next video, I'm going to talk about using some of the different path options to join shapes together, use groups, etc., to make things that are a little bit more complicated but structured in a way that can be useful for making diagrams. So I hope that was helpful, and I'll see you in the next one.